Welcome to HB Tuner's GM Gen 5 training part 43. This training module we're going to take a look at working with our proportional and integral gains in our closed loop O2 correction. We can influence the speed at which our closed loop correction is going to be making its adjustments. We can smooth things out quite a bit on a vehicle with large injectors or large camshaft or a combination of both, or if we have a long tube header and we're seeing a very oscillating type of short-term fuel trim correction in our closed loop operations. We're gonna have a lot to talk about and work within this video here. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Okay, so let's get started. We're gonna be taking a look at working with our proportional and integral gain programming and our closed loop fuel corrections. Now this is gonna be something you absolutely have to do if you have long tube headers installed on your Gen 4, or even if you have stock headers but you have large injectors installed, or a combination of large injectors and long tube headers. You're gonna need to go in and touch up your closed loop behavior. You'll find that it probably is going to be cycling your air fuel a little too quickly. We want to slow things down a bit. So I'm going to show and demonstrate some of the basic changes we need to make, and then you can look at some log data and decide if you need to further refine the changes that we're making here and going in for the closed loop behavior. So let's jump in. We're going to take a look between the VCM scanner and the VCM editor here. So we have a data log to reference to actually see bad behavior, what we don't want it to look like, and then we'll learn how we can make our changes here and what we should find then the behavior is going to look like. So let's jump in. I'm going to be working with a 2009 Cadillac CTSV file. Any Gen 4 calibration file will work to follow along for our training module here. What I'm going to do is jump into my engine tab right here, and we're going to go and find where we can locate the proportional integral gain factor tables for our closed loop operation. Under General, moving over here to Fuel. Under Fuel, we're going to go here into our oxygen sensors. Now under oxygen sensors, if we work our way all the way down towards the bottom of the screen, we find proportional and integral delays. This is what we actually want to change and update so that our closed loop is going to be slowed down a bit and it's not so jumpy when it's making its adjustments. If you're ever noticing, if you don't edit any of these values or any of these table values here and you're in closed loop, especially with long tube headers or long tube headers and large injectors, you may find that your air fuel moves a lot. It jumps around a lot. If you look at your short-term correction, that's also moving quite a bit. So we need to slow that down so it's going to be more averaging towards an air fuel, more a steady air fuel in closed loop correction. We don't want it so jumpy and touchy. We want to make sure that it's going to be relatively consistent, and that's what editing these values here are going to allow us to do. Before we jump in and talk about all these individual tables here, let's talk about proportional, integral, and derivative control, what this actually means. So anytime we're controlling anything in closed loop, it could be our throttle body, it could be, in this case, our fueling, if it's boost control, whatever the closed loop is going to be, whatever the closed routine is going to be, it is always going to have some form of a proportional, integral, and derivative type of gain factors. The way this is going to work is whatever we're trying to control in closed loop, we have a target. So in this case, if we're talking about our fueling here, we have a target air fuel that we want to run at, or a target lambda, which in this case would be 1.0. We know our switching voltages are going to report back what that actual amount from the sensor is going to be. We know we have our target set at 1.0 lambda. Well, the difference between what we're measuring from the primary sensors returned back to the engine control module as a millivolt and the actual value we want to be at, which at idle and part throttle in closed loop would be 1.0 EQ ratio, 1.0 lambda, or 14.7 on the gas air fuel scale. That's what we want to be at. The sensors are going to report how far we're off from that. That's known as an O2 error. Now, any closed loop system, just in general, have this error, the difference between the target and the actual. The error is going to drive how the corrections are made, specifically in the proportional, the integral, and then the derivative. So let's talk about how that breaks down. So we know now we have this error that we're going to be associating. The proportional here, in general terms, is going to look at that immediate difference between the target and the actual, so that immediate error. It's going to then drive, depending on how far the error is, maybe the error is 5% or it's 20%, how far that's off is going to dictate how much of a jump, how quickly the closed loop is going to react to try to change or fix the problem, getting the error as close to zero as possible. So the proportional is responsible for the instantaneous correction and jumps in movement. In the case of working in the closed loop, this would be the magnitude of the change in short term and how quickly that short term changes in its adjustment, and that's going to be in real time, how quickly it moves. Then we have an integral. The integral is going to be taking a look at the rate of change, so how much things are changing, that O2 error, over time. and it is going to be driving and making its own contributions into the adjustments in the closed loop. So for this particular case, the short-term fuel trim can vary and be influenced by the integral. It's looking at the rate of change or the error of change over time. Then the derivative, which is not present because we don't need the derivative gain factor here to work in the closed loop. So derivatives oftentimes dropped out. When we're talking about closed loop fuel, it's not used. Some other factors, sometimes in idle control, it's not used. We can control things with just proportional and integral. But what that's going to be doing is taking a look at the rate of change. So looking at the percentage of error, and it's going to be looking at as a function, a delta, or the rate of change over time, where this is looking at the error over a period of time. This is looking at the rate of change over time, the derivative would be. And in that case, it's going to have its own way that it can correct and make some adjustments. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.